So thank you, Sammy, for offering to have a session of this TRE. I just wanted to give you a little bit of background information first, so you know what you're kind of getting yourself into. Feel free to ask any questions as well. So TRE stands for Tension or Trauma Release Exercise. And actually I was just in the UK, and they're calling TRE Total Release Experience.
Oh.
So they're still using TRE, but yeah, so tension, trauma, but it's something about releasing.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was actually, I wouldn't say invented, more discovered by a man called David Bocelli. Now he was working in lots of different war-torn regions around the world. And so often he would find himself in situations where there were bombs going off and people needing to run to bomb shelters and kind of be in that very, very stressful situation. And so what he noticed is that when there were people in a bomb shelter, no matter where he was around the world, there would be like a universal reaction to it.
Mm.
So what do you think? If you were in a bomb shelter and you heard bombs going off around you, what do you think you would do? What do you think your instinctive kind of reaction would be?
It's kind of duck.
Duck, and what
Yeah.
else? What do you think your body would do if you heard
Shake, nervous shake, scared.
Yeah, and also there's a kind of feeling
Yeah.
of like, you know, like we
Duck.
want to protect ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, so ducking and protecting ourselves, and particularly kind of contracting this part of ourselves. And so that's what he noticed wherever he was around the world. It didn't matter what culture, what language, there was like a universal human reaction. So that shows it's something that's part of our human structure rather than any cultural kind of differences. And it's interesting that you said shake, because what he also noticed was that children, once there'd been a bomb going off, the children in the shelters would often tremor or shake.
Okay.
And again, that was universal, whereas the adults wouldn't. And he was like, that's kind of strange, that's weird. How come children do it and adults don't? And around the same kind of time, I think he got quite interested in, there's a guy called Peter Levine, and he was also interested in like a stress response. And he wrote a book called Waking the Tiger. And in that, he talks about that with animals, that they have a natural tremoring. So if something stressful happens to them afterwards, they kind of tremor. I don't know if you've ever seen that with a dog or a cat. Yeah? So, yeah, if something
Same
happens,
kind of thing,
so they kind of tremor or shake. And he's like, well, it's obviously a mammalian reaction, so how come adults don't do it? And then what he figured out was, because we have our instinctive reactions, but we also have the part of us, our prefrontal cortex, which can control some of those things. And because when an adult kind of sees someone else shaking, what do you think some kind of thoughts or judgments might be about that? If you saw someone else kind of shaking,
That they're not okay.
yeah, that they're not okay, and maybe that they're a bit weak,
Yeah.
or there's something wrong, and people don't like to show their vulnerability. And so we have shut it down. As adults, we tend to shut that.
I control it.
Yeah, so we try and control it. And so it's like, well, it's obviously, like most things that happen in our body, they're there for a good reason. They're not just kind of random. And the fact that animals do it and children do it, there must be some kind of beneficial component behind it. So he was really curious to understand what that was. And he was also very interested in the body, and he understood the body. I think he was a massage therapist as well. And so what he recognized is this kind of motion, and we kind of, is very much to do with our psoas muscle. And the psoas muscle is this muscle that connects our hips, our legs, and our spine. And so it's this really big muscle that runs at the front. And that's the one that tends to contract when we get kind of in that scared state. And so he's like, okay, there's something to do with those muscles. And also, if you think about, are you familiar with the term like fight, flight, and freeze? And so when we have a stressor, like if we can run away, we can flight, then that's what we want to do. And so that tremor response in some ways is helping us to kind of
Yeah.
imagine that we're fleeing in some ways. And so he was really interested in how to activate that response. So that's how he came up with these very, very simple exercises that are designed to fatigue the muscles to such an extent that you actually activate this very natural tremoring response. And so you could think, well, is it just not tiring my muscles out? But what we found is that any old tension, old traumas are stored in the body. And so once you kind of open that doorway, then old tensions, old traumas can be released through this kind of tremoring mechanism. Okay, so that's what the exercises are designed to do, to help you kind of open that door within yourself to release some of the tension, some of the trauma.
Okay.
Yeah. Any questions so far?
What are the benefits of it?
Oh, great question. So obviously, if you're releasing tension, trauma, then there's the release of that, which means lower stress in your body. Potentially, these are all potentials because everyone's going to react differently. Sleep better. If you also think about a lot of pain can be held by tight muscles, so there could be potentially less pain. I know I've had people who've had like injuries in their shoulders, whatever, and the tremor can actually go to that place and release it. And also a very really significant one, if you think of the psoas muscle, now if you think it's really contracted and tight, it actually affects your back.
Okay.
And so if this is tight, your back is constantly needing to kind of pull itself back. And so they think a lot of lower back pain, which is exactly what this area is, comes from a tight psoas. And so if you release a tight psoas, then you get reduced back pain. But again, they're all potentials. So did I say about better sleep as well? Yes, so better sleep. Increased pain and just feeling more relaxed, more in yourself, more able to, I'm feeling a bit sweaty, so more able to handle just general stresses in everyday life. So it's like more internal resilience in some ways. So there is a graph that David Bocelli uses of like, if you imagine that there's like a graph and your stress level goes up, we want to come down that graph. And so the more that you release, the more you can kind of come down, and then the more you're able to deal with additional stresses in your life. Yeah? So I need to ask you, do you have any recent injuries, anything physical that I need to know about? Nothing? High blood pressure, low blood pressure? Any medication?
No.
Are you likely to be pregnant?
No.
Okay. Any epilepsy? Nothing?
No.
Okay, that's what I needed to know. Something else for you to be aware of as we go into the exercises. In our Western mindset, we often think more is better. The more I do something, the better it is. Like the more I shake, the better it will be. Or the more I tire myself out, the better the result. TRE is something really different because what we're trying to do is get you to self-regulate, to really pay attention to what is going on inside so that you become much more aware when stress happens. So you become much more aware of being able to notice and then deal with stress. Because many of us walk around with such high levels of stress that we've become kind of numb to what's going on in our bodies. Running on adrenaline, absolutely. There's huge amounts of chronic burnout and all of these things. And so with TRE, the whole point is to really become much more attuned internally. So to really notice. So when we're going to go through the exercises, I'm going to really ask you to pay attention and to not overdo it. And to really let me know if at any stage you feel either kind of lightheaded, a bit spacey, if you notice any emotions, if you notice anything at all, I'll be watching it as well, but if you notice anything, just let me know. Because it can activate you. Yeah. And we want to activate you a little bit, but not too much. Yeah?
Yeah.